Tonight, police identify the woman whose body was found in a garbage bag in Leslieville.
And she has been identified as 46-year-old Tien Lee of Toronto.
Toronto police now looking for her son, Dallas, saying they are concerned for his well-being. Plus,
the reason for the wave is that we throw caution to the wind.
A warning from the head of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table that we are now in the middle of a sixth wave, what he suggests in order to keep infections down. And
I know that this bill will create more housing and create faster housing.
The Ford government's plan to boost the supply of housing in the province, but will it have an impact on affordability? Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. Toronto police have identified the woman found dead in Leslieville this week. Her body discovered inside a garbage bag near a busy intersection on Monday. Officers now turning their focus on finding her son, saying they are concerned for his well-being. Jessica Ng has the latest.
The investigators have confirmed the identity of the deceased woman, and she has been identified as 46-year-old Tien Lee of Toronto.
Toronto police found Tien's body on Eastern Avenue at Berkshire Monday afternoon.
They located a deceased female body in a plastic bag. The body, unfortunately, had signs of trauma and was also had dismemberment involved.
Last night, police releasing photos of the red shirt she was wearing and a distinct design on her toes and fingernails. Constable Alex Lee says those photos were instrumental in helping to identify Tien.
These are important pieces to the case.
Toronto police say it is still a very sensitive and active investigation. Constable Lee says they're still looking into whether Tien had a spouse or partner at the time of her murder. There has been a continued police presence throughout the day at the condo building behind me at Dundas and Carlaw. Investigators say Tien and her 20-year-old son Dallas lived in an apartment in this building. Investigators now say they'd like to speak to Dallas and are concerned for his well-being.
We've been unable to locate Dallas, and as a result, we're appealing to members of the public or anybody that has any information that can lead us to get in contact with Dallas.
Late tonight, police releasing this photo of the 20-year-old. Officers say it's what they observed in the apartment that's prompting them to want to speak to him.
Upon entering the residence, there was cause for concern, and that concern is now that they cannot locate Dallas.
Police say Dallas is not currently being looked at as a suspect in this case. Tien is the city's 17th homicide of the year. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
And Toronto police are offering a reward for information that leads to the arrest of two men wanted in unrelated murder and attempted murder investigations.
Bolo's message is simple but effective. Be on the lookout. And today we are here to announce they will be offering two substantial rewards of up to $50,000 for information that leads to the arrest of two individuals who are wanted for some of the most serious offenses, including homicide and attempt murder.
Police say Tommy Ngo and Usman Kasim are believed to be in the Toronto area. He's wanted on a second-degree murder charge in the September 2015 stabbing of 23-year-old Russell Sahadeho. The police say Ngo and a friend got into a fight with Sahadeho and his friends in a park near Scarlett Road and Eglinton Avenue West. Kasim, meanwhile, faces 2 counts of attempted murder in connection to a drive-by shooting. He's also alleged to have held a gun to a woman's head and threatened her life in an underground parking garage. Both men are considered armed and dangerous. Anyone with information on their whereabouts is asked to contact police. A warning from the director of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table today. Dr. Peter Uni says we're now in the middle of a 6th wave, attributing that to people letting their guard down too early. Chris Glover has more.
Toronto streets are bustling again, and the resounding feeling is one of pushing past COVID.
I feel over it.
Well, I'm definitely tired of it.
I'm ready for it to be over. Like, really.
Even if I get it, I can deal with it.
But today, a wake-up call from the director of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table. He says we're in the middle of a 6th wave.
The reason for the wave is that we throw caution to the wind. There's much less mask use than what we would have hoped for, and probably quite a bit more contacts than what we would have hoped for. Therefore, we're seeing quite a steep increase right now.
In general, COVID testing in Ontario is nearly non-existent, but wastewater surveillance data is showing roughly 35,000 infections a day, even as the number of COVID patients in intensive care is remaining relatively stable.
The point is, there are vulnerable people out there who will still end up in our hospital, and we don't want them to be exposed to a tidal wave again.
Some are heeding that message.
I just feel, I got to do my part, and if that means wearing a mask, I just don't feel right, like going in and like feeling like, I'm invincible, but like what if the next person beside me isn't?
While many are only wearing masks if they have to. I notice you have the mask around your neck here. How often are you wearing it?
That's because of the office policy. I don't really care about masks anymore.
Today, the Ministry of Health says any increase in cases is expected, and Ontario has vaccines and medications to manage the virus. In a statement, the ministry says the latest modeling shows that our hospitals and healthcare system can manage any of the projected scenarios. But Dr. Uni worries his table's calculations are out of date.
The projections we made will not apply. Why? Because people are actually just behaving differently, and we will need to recalibrate our models.
He worries about complacency combined with waning immunity of vaccines and infections over time, and is pleading with the public to choose the mask, even if they don't have to by law, at least for a couple more weeks. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
The city has launched this year's spring cleanup campaign in an effort to remove all the litter that has accumulated over the winter.
I don't think any of us really like the look of the city when winter comes to an end. Snow, while it can be its own aggravation, covers up a lot of things. It is still the case, while we have work to do to maintain our standards, that people come here from other places in the world, big cities all over the world, and notice how clean the city is. And it's our responsibility to keep it that way.
Now in its 17th year, the annual cleanup event takes place over a 4-week period. The city says it will deploy 250 pieces of equipment, including litter vacuums and sweepers. Residents are encouraged to participate between April 22nd and the 24th by removing litter from public spaces. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, the weather a bit all over the place today.
Well, Kelda, Mother Nature's just been throwing absolutely everything at us, and the few things that weren't on the list today, well, now they're on tap for tonight and into tomorrow. One of those being windy conditions, but another, the risk of some thunderstorms as well coming through, especially into the afternoon hours and especially a little further east, but we have the potential elsewhere too. For now, we're talking about those winds, so another special weather statement could go into some warnings here, but we are looking at winds starting to pick up in the morning, but really towards midday, gusting 50, 60. Some gusts could even exceed 80 kilometers an hour, and those will start being strong like that a little earlier for southwestern Ontario. Through the overnight hours, although we've been into kind of a dry slot with just sort of drizzle or light showers, we do see more rain showers pushing through, a few locally a little heavier, but otherwise it's mostly scattered in nature. The temperature soaring as those winds turn towards the southwest. Could get some sunshine in there with the warmer temperatures, at least one little window or pocket where if you hold on to things, you can at least enjoy it, and then the cooler air will eventually follow. I'll talk more about that coming up, but your eyes are reading this correctly. 16 degrees for the daytime high tomorrow.
Wow. All right. Thanks, Colette. The Ford government has released its plan to boost the supply of housing in the province. Now, the plan includes cutting red tape and speeding up approval for new developments. What's not clear, though, is whether it will have any impact on the cost of buying a home. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the details.
Right now in Ontario, about 80,000 new housing units are getting built each year. A task force on housing affordability told the province that pace needs to double. Now the Ford government is unveiling its plan to get there.
I know that this bill will create more housing and create faster housing.
The government calls it the More Homes for Everyone plan. It focuses largely on speeding up municipal approvals for housing projects. But there's no target for how many more homes will get built, and the minister is making no promises.
So let's focus on the policy first, and let's review the numbers in the years to come.
The Housing Task Force had urged the government to aim for 1.5 million new homes built in Ontario in the next decade. Its key recommendation, greater density in neighborhoods of single-family homes. That did not go over well with cities, especially the more suburban parts of the Greater Toronto Area.
Perhaps the recommendations were a bit too bold for some communities.
Those bold ideas now get kicked down the road. The government says it will consult with municipalities about housing after the June election.
Previous governments didn't get the housing starts that we needed through the red tape and regulations, all the bureaucracy. It's not that they weren't able to, previous governments. They didn't have the fortitude. They didn't have the backbone to go out there and get it done.
This announcement today, it does nothing to help solve that housing crisis, and not even addressing some of the fundamentals that everybody was on board with.
Today's reforms do include a new name for those fast-track ministerial zoning orders. If you thought that was a mouthful, now it's the Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator.
An opportunity for municipalities to build those priority projects. So yes, it is something that we're going to use as a zoning tool moving forward.
The Ford government has taken heat for issuing 5 times as many MZOs as the previous government had in a decade. City councils that want them now must consult the public first. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Another part of that announcement, increasing and expanding the foreign buyers tax. Now, before today, the tax sat at 15% and only applied to the GTA. It's now been increased to 20% and applies to the entire province. Lorenda Redekop has that part of the story.
With home prices way up, here's what the government says its expanded foreign buyers tax is about.
Ontario families and home buyers should be the first priority for housing in our province, not foreign speculators looking to turn a profit.
It was the previous Liberal government that first added a foreign buyers tax in 2017.
Prices in the GTA single detached market fell 10 to 15% very, very quickly, like within the matter of months, if not weeks, and took about 3 or 4 years to climb back out of that hole.
For 4 years, they did nothing to tackle rampant speculation.
Both the Greens and the NDP called for this move to 20% and across the province. We reached a realtor we spoke with back then who saw the huge price drop.
That wasn't the cause. It was almost like the prices were rising 30% per year. People were spooked. And it was literally like that one thing that made people panic, right? And they pulled out of the market.
He feels now rising interest rates will have a much bigger impact on cooling the market. The Toronto Region Real Estate Board says in the past year and a half, around 100 sales a month were subject to the tax.
Which is about 1%, let's say, of overall transactions. And so, from that standpoint, it wasn't a huge slice of the pie.
The so-called foreign buyers are a drop in the bucket when it comes to the individual houses.
This U of T housing professor says if the government wanted to end housing speculation, it would tax people from here who own multiple homes or include all foreign buyers.
If you buy an apartment building, there's no tax if you're a foreigner. If you buy more than 6 properties, there's no tax. The obfuscation is as if this is the problem. Somehow foreigners are the problem and they're cracking down on foreigners. But they're not.
He says what's also needed is more housing supply. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. The faint glimmers of hope that were sparked by talks between Ukraine and Russia appear to have faded. After negotiations in Turkey yesterday, Russian officials said the country's forces would pull back operations around the capital, Kiev. But today, the chief spokesman for President Vladimir Putin says there are no signs of any breakthrough yet. Suburbs to the east of Kiev have been hit with more bombardments. Officials in the region say there has been no let-up. West of the capital, the suburb of Irpin has been retaken by Ukrainian forces, but the area has been devastated by Russian assaults. And Russian forces hit a fuel depot about 200 kilometers west of Kiev overnight. The fire is now believed to be out. The strike is seen as part of a new Russian strategy to target essential supplies. And local efforts continue here in Toronto to help those impacted by the conflict in Ukraine. Today, humanitarian aid organization Global Medic worked alongside WestJet employees to put together emergency food kits.
We have teams inside Ukraine, and we have teams on the borders in Moldova, Romania, and then Poland as well. And they're telling us that the refugee needs are immense, right? People need access to their shelter, they need access to food, they need access to primary health care. Inside the country, the need for food has really increased, which is why we're running this emergency food program.
The kits include pantry staples like navy white beans, pasta, green split peas, and buckwheat. Now, they will be transported to Ukraine and bordering countries and then sent to those displaced within Ukraine. And you're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. Partly cloudy tonight with some showers developing overnight. Currently, it is about 3 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your full forecast. And Colette, we're seeing those heavy winds tonight and with it some rising temperatures.
Kelda, when these systems come through, you know, we tend to see so many different types of weather and so many features, but there's often also this window, like a pocket, where you get to enjoy the sun with the warmth and maybe just have to deal with some windy conditions. And that's going to be, looks like kind of tomorrow early afternoon, where some of us might get to just enjoy a little bit of it when it's not actually wet and when we're not getting back into colder temperatures. So those temperatures rise tonight, continue rising into early afternoon tomorrow, putting us in the teens. But we do have those strong winds with the wet conditions, especially early or with the wet conditions and towards the mid part of the day for those winds. And it is going to be a balancing act when we get to the weekend. What I mean by the temperatures finally kind of balancing out instead of the extreme ups and downs, closer to seasonal. At this time of year, that's a daytime high of 8. So into the drier pocket, but then we have the showers coming through overnight tonight. Early morning commute could be a little wet through the GTA, and certainly still seeing scattered showers into southwestern Ontario. Some of those wind gusts, we'll get to them in just a minute, very, very strong in nature. But see how we get into this kind of pocket here where we get some of that heat with the sun coming through. Now, that risk of thunderstorms along that cold front, especially into eastern Ontario, but we might hear a rumble of thunder through Toronto. And then on the backside, the colder air starts to come in, so temperatures later afternoon and evening tomorrow will start to plummet. Much cooler day for April Fools, of course, and we'll be looking at some flurries coming through as well. But just check out some of the winds, and in fact, they may be even stronger than some of these gusts. This is in the morning hours. You can see certainly along the lakeshore into the Niagara region, and then some of the gusts may exceed, like I say, 80. That Burlington Sky Bridge could be a little bit tricky tomorrow. Possible that we get into wind warnings and even see some parts sort of shut down for a while. So something to watch for. Look at those temperatures going up to double digits overnight in southwestern Ontario. They'll get there eventually here around the Golden Horseshoe, and that's why we're talking about 16 for that daytime high for your Thursday, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Our city could spend more than $90 million to be a World Cup host in 2026. The tournament will take place across North America, with games being played in Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. Vancouver, Edmonton, and host cities. Ali Chiasson has more.
This is the moment the country has waited for.
The city of Toronto is capitalizing on the momentum from the momentous win at BMO Field last Sunday, when Team Canada qualified for the upcoming World Cup. Well, now city staff have put together its plan for hosting a portion of World Cup 2026. The idea is that Toronto would host half of the 10 games played in Canada. It's estimated to cost the city about $73.8 million, with about $20 million of in-kind fees on top of that. The province and the federal government will contribute financially as well. Just how much hasn't been decided yet. And budgets tend to balloon with these kinds of mega sporting events.
The track record of hosting is that once you sign on to host, now you have to do everything to get it done, right? And if costs overrun, then that's on the back of the hosts to spend all of that money.
Despite the high price of hosting, city staff say it could create about 3,300 jobs and inject $307 million back into the local economy. But small businesses never benefit quite as much.
The money that does come into a place that's hosting tends to go towards the bigger businesses and corporate-owned facilities.
Buchanan!
That being a World Cup host does score as a morale booster. I mean, look at what just qualifying this year did.
We could use some coming together around something like soccer, football right now, and I just think as long as we're aware of why we're investing in something like hosting the World Cup, that it might be for national pride or it might be for trying to give us a chance for something to celebrate. That's a good reason to do it.
FIFA World Cup.
But that is a different argument than it being a good idea economically long term. But in the short term, we'll find out when FIFA decides if Toronto fits the footy bill later this spring. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Finally tonight, the Hot Docs Canadian International Documentary Festival has released its lineup of films set to debut this year. Here's a sneak peek at one of the docs that features never-before-seen archival footage and interviews from the 80s comedy troupe The Kids in the Hall.
We were all very much trying to prove to our dads, maybe, that we were men. By dressing up as women.
You know, I bet it came as a bit of a shock to find you had me as a new mom, huh?
And that's just one of 226 films from 63 countries set to screen at Hot Docs, which will run from April 28th to May 8th. After the pandemic shifted the festival online the past 2 years, the event is set to bring back in-person screenings this year. Audiences across Canada will also be able to stream the titles from home. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.